All right, so for part one, we're going to be running 5 different TLCs, analyzing our unknown number 3 solution. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this solution, spot it on 5 different TLC plates, place them into solvent chambers containing 5 different solvent ratios. Those are listed on your handout. So what we want to do is we want to take our vial of unknown solution number 3 and take a TLC plate, and what we do is we draw the baseline across the bottom of the TLC plate. That's where we're actually going to deposit our unknown solution number 3 using a TLC spotter. And so very simply, we will take a TLC spotter that looks like this, dip it into unknown solution number 3, and then we only have to press once on the center of the baseline that we drew across the TLC plate. And we're going to do this for 5 different TLC plates. All right, so following along with your pre-lab assignment, now what we would do is prepare the solvent chamber solutions that have a total of 0.5 mils, and we would use a micropipetter to do that. And so we would prepare one solvent chamber that had 50% hexanes, 50% acetone, one that had 25% hexanes, 75% acetone, one that had 100% of acetone, one that had 100% of hexanes, and one that had 75% hexanes, 25% acetone. And these vials, these solvent chambers, are where you actually deposit the TLC plates that we just spotted. And so very simply, if we want to place our TLC plate into the 50-50 hexanes acetone solvent chamber, we would unscrew it and very carefully place the TLC plate into it and very carefully put the cap back on. And so over time, the solvent level would actually run up the TLC plate, carrying the compounds that were in unknown solution number 3 with it to varying distances. All right, so once the solvent level gets very close to the top of the TLC plate, we want to remove it from the solution and then very quickly mark how far the solvent traveled up the TLC plate with a pencil. And then annotate at the top the solvent ratio that was contained in the solvent chamber. And so now what we want to do is see how far up the TLC plate our different spots ran. And so what we do is we shine UV light on the TLC plate, and we see that there are 3 spots on the TLC plate that traveled varying distances. One that just stayed on the baseline at the bottom here, one that traveled this far up the TLC plate, and one that traveled that far up the TLC plate. And what we would want to do is circle these spots with pencil, because when we turn the UV light off, they aren't present on the TLC plate anymore. Well, they are, but you can't see them. And so by circling them with pencil, you always know basically how far each compound traveled up the TLC plate. And so the TLC plates are coated with a special fluorescent coating that glow green under UV light, and any compound that can absorb UV light will just show up as a dark spot. All right, so now looking at our data table for part 1 on the handout that was posted on Moodle, we copied over the data from the 5 different TLC plates onto this handout. So we see here we have our 50-50 hexanes to acetone solvent ratio TLC plate, and then I just duplicated it on the handout itself. And so now what we want to do is measure the distance that the solvent traveled up the TLC plate. And we were careful in doing this, and we measured a distance in millimeters for this for all 5 trials of 36 millimeters. And so then what you would do is take a ruler and measure the distance from the baseline that each of the spots moved up the TLC plate. And so you would hold your ruler in a way so that you measured the distance between, say, this spot here, and we always do the center of the spot, to the baseline, and then we would record that number down below. So we already measured these distances in millimeters for you, and so it's up to you to fill in the RF section of this table, and also you need to fill in the volume ratio for each of the runs to determine, how much volume of each solvent you'd be adding from your micropipetter to make that solvent ratio, keeping in mind that the total volume in the solvent chamber for the 5 different vials was 0.5 milliliters.